Hey guys, Chris here with the Good Old Gamer. So Samsung's back at it again, explaining to us once again why we can't have nice things. So apparently because they can't price fix, they are now starting to price fix. This is interesting to see in a market that they've been gouging the shit out of us for about a year and a half now. They don't want that to stop because their investors will get mad. So that's what we're going to be talking about here today. So stick around and check it out. All right, so I found this article over here on Tech Power Up. This was originally reported over here on Bloomberg. I will put both links in the description below so you can read them yourselves. Tech Power Up does a good job of basically summarizing this, so we'll just go over this here real quick. In a bid to head off investor worries for a potential downturn, Samsung is looking to tighten their belt in regards to manufacturing of DRAM. This move is preempted by the expectation of DRAM bit growth to be less than 20% year over year. So basically the market is shrinking, so why produce as much? Considering the semiconductor industry is known for its up and down cycles, Samsung's preemptive move could stabilize or even drive up cost of memory coming out of not just them, but Micron and SK Hynix as well. Basically, less supply equals more demand is what that equates out to. This would help keep their profits rolling in. And that's ultimately what this comes down to. Now, I know none of you are particularly surprised by this, but the fact that Samsung is flat out coming out telling everybody, hey, we're just going to limit supply of DRAM so this way, we don't overproduce. Which, granted, that makes sense in theory, and as a business, that does make sense. But prices are already inflated because demand is not being met. The prices that we saw in 2016 were a little bit of an anomaly where there was a little bit more supply than there was demand. 16 gigabytes of DDR4 at 3200 megahertz went as high as about $220, and I think it was as low as like $80. So I guess maybe we are kind of in between the two. It's going for about $140, $160 here in the US right now. So, okay, it's in between, but come on. I mean, somewhere around the 120 mark, I think we could probably all say, all right, that's okay. But since prices have been dropping here recently, I've seen them around $135, $140 on sale, of course. So, that's not an everyday thing, but if you can catch a deal, that's where they're at. They want to go ahead and get those prices back up towards that $200 mark, or at least higher than they are now. I just wanted to bring this to your guys' attention because it looks like this is just the way it's going to be. Every tech industry, every tech market is pretty much a monopoly or a duopoly or a triopoly. Basically, 1, 2, or 3 major players at most. And memory has 3 major players. Samsung happens to be the biggest one. We just saw Nvidia go ahead and roll out their new GPUs and just massively overinflate their prices for the performance that they're delivering. And now we're seeing that Samsung's saying, fuck it, let's go ahead and join in and just rake in the profits. And who cares about the fallout for this? Now, as consumers, they're not really thinking about you or I as regular gamers. They're not talking about that. That's not where their mind is. They're obviously talking about taking advantage of big companies buying tons and tons of RAM and spending hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. That's where they're going to see the most of their money. But it will trickle down and affect us as well, because this will also affect things like GDDR memory prices as well. So that affects GPUs, and then of course system RAM has already been inflated, as I discussed, and it looks like they're just going to continue to be inflated. This is just a real shitstorm, and really, this article actually really got me thinking, why do I even care about this anymore? This used to be a hobby. This used to be fun. And that's the reason why I started the channel, was to go ahead and talk about tech and games and all this fun stuff. But the more you learn and pay attention to the industry, and things haven't always been this way. I mean, things have always been kind of shady and had their shitty moments. I mean, this happened in 2006 with real price fixing and, fines, and people went to jail. I mean, it was a big deal. But nowadays they've gotten smart enough to say, well, we're not price fixing, we're just going to cut back on supply, which makes sense to us as a business. And that's perfectly legal. A business doesn't have to produce a certain quantity of things. They can't be dictated by, governments to say, you have to meet this quota, otherwise, we're going to fine you. The that's not a free market either. So they figured out, instead of colluding with the other guys, they can just go ahead and set what they're going to produce. The other guys can kind of see what's going on, and it's going to be price fixing without actually being price fixing. You know, on the CPU side, for years and years there, all we had was Intel for the most part, and they pretty much just did whatever they wanted to. And luckily, Intel really wasn't that bad. I mean, if you look at what NVIDIA's doing and what these RAM manufacturers are doing, I mean, you know, the 2600K came out at $320 or something. And, you know, even Coffee Lake came out at $350. You know, the prices didn't really go up that much, even though they could have. So, kudos to Intel for not being as bad as everybody else. And it's just really sad to me that this is where we are. We're in a market where there's so few players anymore that those that are left can literally just dictate whatever they want. And they're all gunning for our wallets, each and every single one of these companies. Every manufacturer, semiconductor manufacturer out there, everybody producing a chip of any kind, they realize that they've killed the vast majority of their competition. You only have 2 CPU manufacturers. You only have 2 GPU manufacturers. You only really have 3 memory manufacturers. It's gotten to the point where China said, fuck it, we're going to go ahead and get our own memory manufacturing company. And that's funded by China themselves, the government. Just to go ahead and be able to supply their country with more affordable memory. And they noticed that this trend was going on, that they could get into this market and they can be competitive because nobody's being competitive anymore. They're just taking advantage of the situation. Like I said, the CPU market's really the only market where things never really got out of control, I guess you could say. I mean, Intel does charge $10,000, or did charge $10,000 for their top-end CPUs there for a while. Now that Ryzen's out and, you know, Epic and all that, they can't really justify that anymore. So with that competition, with AMD taking a lot of their market share, they do have to compete a little bit more. But, you know, for the consumer side, for us, you know, we never really saw that end of the spectrum. All the CPUs that we saw typically cost about the same. Performance didn't really go up much, but we didn't see price hikes. And, I mean, it's shitty to say that that's now looking good in comparison to what we have today. So I just wanted to go ahead. This is kind of like a micro rant. I'm really disheartened by this whole industry. And realistically, I'm almost to the point of just saying, screw it. When it comes to new components, I'm probably just going to buy secondhand from now on and probably use last generation stuff. I mean, if you think about it, DDR3 systems are still very viable today, and you can pick up DDR3 16 gig kit for a lot less than you can DDR4. And realistically speaking, like a 4790K or an X79 motherboard with a Sandy Bridge or Ivy Bridge E CPU is not going to be too much behind what we have here today anyway for most people. So maybe that's the smart move. Just say screw it. If people stop buying things, that'll definitely help out. But realistically, it's the businesses out there that's where they're making all this money, and that's really the only market that they really care about. AMD really only cares about the CPU server market. NVIDIA really only cares about the professional markets. You know, that's where they sell $10,000 GPUs. And then obviously these memory manufacturers want to sell tons of server memory at these inflated prices. And that's where they're going to make the bulk of their profits. Well, alrighty guys, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. How do you feel about this? I mean, things are getting worse. I mean, let's be real. Things are definitely not getting better. We were all expecting and hoping for 2019 to bring some sanity back into the DRAM pricing. And it looks like Samsung's like, no. We don't want that. But what do you guys think? Let me know your comments down in the comment section below. And if you like this video, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Please share with friends. That really does help me out. That's all I have for today. And I will catch you guys in the next video.